green. Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. Ready? This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go.
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go.
And a good football Friday, Eagles fans. And it is actually a football Friday. I know we're months away from Eagles actually playing a game, but there is a lot of Eagle news today that we'll be breaking down for you. Your Mac and Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald, here to hang with you for the next 2 hours. And yes, Johnny Mac, you had work to do yesterday. Eagles make both Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman available. You knew it was going to be draft talk, but the coaching staff finally finalized.
Not yet. That's a funny story, Jody.
Understood. And if you want to tell it, please feel free. Yes, the Eagles are trending toward hiring Matt Patricia, but Adam Schefter, who I guess runs all 32 NFL teams, announced afterwards it was a done deal that Matt Patricia is going to be part of the Eagles staff. Yeah, we knew that they had interest in him. How many months ago? 2 months ago? It was a bigger story, and then it kind of floated away when he wasn't officially.
It was about him being the linebackers coach, which would have been a significant step down for him. And ultimately, they hired DJ Elliott, and now he gets a bigger title as senior defensive assistant. That's it. So there's a couple stories. I love the titles, by the way, Jody. I just love them. Are you a Cheers fan? I always tell that.
Sure.
The old show. There was a great Cheers episode where all the employees were disgruntled, and it was the Rebecca years for those people who like Cheers.
Yeah.
And Rebecca didn't have any money to give anybody raises, so she gave everybody titles, and they were happy. They were good, Rhea Perlman was like executive director of waitresses, and she gave them all these titles, and everybody was thrilled with it. That's what I think of the NFL. What I see, Kevin Patullo is now associate head coach, not assistant,
right?
Associate head coach, and but anyway.
And oh, by the way, just let me quickly interject. Nick didn't even try and come up with the smallest change of responsibilities to explain to them. All he did was change his title to say, hey, I wanted to put his name on the press release so everybody acknowledges how good a job he is. But otherwise, he's doing the exact same job he used to do.
Yeah. He probably got a couple extra bucks as well.
Good for him.
That part differs from
unlike years they're going to get raises. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. So that part's a little bit different. But the titles make me smile all the time. But Matt Patricia. The funny part is, so let me paint this picture for you. They announce, as the Eagles do these days, they announce everything on Twitter. That's another story we got to get into, but that's down the road. So they announced the coaching staff on Twitter, and we're saying, that's interesting. Kevin Patullo, associate head coach, DK McDonald. We didn't know who the defensive backs coach was going to be.
Right.
Was it going to be Tabor Johnson, the new guy, or DK was going to get the promotion? So DK got the promotion. Tabor Johnson's the assistant. The new Nichols coach we knew about. So anyway, so the Eagles have a media house where we all work, and we all, those of us who are there all the time have our little cubicles, and my cubicle is on the end, and Martin Frank's right next to me, my buddy, and Tim McManus is right the next chair over, and Tim and I are talking at the website. You go to the website, you get the background for these guys, and bang, there's Matt Patricia, senior defensive assistant, on the website, on the Eagles website. And he wasn't announced with the coaches. And then we're telling the other reporters, hey, Matt Patricia's on the website. And then they try to get to the website, and it's off. There's no more Matt Patricia. Now, luckily, Tim got a screenshot of it. So he was up. Now, he's only up there for multiple seconds, and we happened to stumble upon it. So I immediately texted somebody from the Eagles and said, why aren't you announcing Patricia? And the response I got back was, where'd you get that?
Matt who? You didn't get a Matt who?
Where'd you get that? I said, your website. And so the whole pre-draft, and this was right before the pre-draft press conference. So, Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni are expecting to go up there to get the draft questions. And, everybody's like, hey, did you hire Matt Patricia? So anyway, it was just a funny story. Why the Eagles are, whether the deal wasn't completely buttoned up and published the wrong web page, he's going to be here. But the most interesting part is Darius Slay. I mean, Darius Slay does not like Matt Patricia from their time together in Detroit. And he's not shy about it. So it's kind of a bold move by Nick. In some ways, I give him credit for it because it shows, it shows he's comfortable in his own skin. It shows he's going to do what he thinks is best for the team. It shows he's competent. He can manage personalities, all that kind of stuff. But it is kind of a bold move because I don't think they need him. They're creating a title for him. Now he thinks he can help them improve the team, and we'll see. But so from that perspective, I applaud Nick. But it is, and look, from Matt's perspective, I'm sure, he's been coaching for a long time. I'm sure he's had players, and he's kind of a gruff guy, and people have seen him. I'm sure he's got a bunch of players who didn't like him, and you got to get over that stuff if you're a coach. I don't think it's going to be a problem from his perspective. We'll see about Slay. I think he'll get over it as well, But it's, if you had him as linebackers coach, Jody, they're not going to meet. He's going to meet with the linebackers. Yeah, he'll be in with the, when the whole defense meets, when the whole team meets and all that kind of stuff. But there's not that much one-on-one connection. In theory, now he's a senior defensive assistant. In theory, he's going to be involved with the whole defense, not on a day-to-day working with a position group. Who knows? But Nick is confident that he can navigate those waters, so to speak.
And to me, that's key. This is a Nick Sirianni hire. And we've seen since basically Nick took over, we don't know about the first staff that they put together. It seemed like Nick had a lot to do and say with it. They were crossover guys who had worked for him. And then we find out after the fact, oh, no, the Eagles had hired him before they ever hired Sirianni. Both of the two coordinators were Howie Roseman hires. But ever since, it seems like Nick has been the guy who's basically handpicked his staff. So this is his decision. So I completely believe going in that he talked this down between both two guys.
He said, he got asked that. And he said, yeah, he's talked to Slay. Yeah, I mean, you got to do that. I would be shocked if he hired Matt Patricia and did not talk to Darius Slay. And he already said, he got asked about that later in the press conference and said, yeah, we've talked about it. And So presumably he's comfortable with it. But and anytime we've been around long enough, Jody, to see personalities clash and ruin team seasons. Yeah, there's always a little concern. So I think as I said, I frame it as a positive that Nick's comfortable with his ability to sort of manage people. I think that's a positive. Other than going the other way and playing it safe and saying, well, I think this guy can help my team, but I'm not going to hire him because I don't want to upset one of my star players. I don't think that's a way you can run your team.
No, and I think we see that right here, right now with Nick Sirianni and this hire. And maybe I'm looking at this through eagle-colored glasses. I've had guys on ask questions of guys who've been on staffs with Matt Patricia. He's a bit of a disciplinarian. And when he's in a position of power, then, yeah, he likes to flex his muscles. He likes to challenge guys. He likes to get in guys' kitchens. How much of a position of power is he truly in here? Nick talked about him and said it's someone for me to lean on and his experience, but he didn't really give us a breakdown, didn't expect him to, as to what the responsibilities are going to be for Matt Patricia. Is he going to be in a position where he's going to be lecturing? He's going to be directly involved with Slay? I would doubt that highly.
No. Yeah, and we don't know, and we'll flesh that out later. I mean, I want to know the connection. Like where's the connection? Why did you gravitate? Now they're both New York guys. I'm sure they've come across each other. The connection's a big part of it, and then you're right. I mean, generally, you look around the league, and everybody's doing this stuff with, senior defensive advisors, and they're generally sometimes they're not even in the building. Or the Eagles did it with Jim Bob Cooter a couple years ago. Just showed up one day as a senior offensive consultant or whatever, and he was doing special projects, and he was kind of off to the side. So you're right. I mean, Sean Desai is going to be running the defensive meetings, and DK McDonald's going to be running the secondary meetings. And he's going to be off to the side, probably helping with advanced scouting, probably helping with game planning. Similar to when they brought in Marcus Brady, Marcus is now the senior offensive assistant, so he's setting it up similar, and they're probably, just sounding boards more than anything else is generally how those things shake out.
And we'll see. We won't know till they actually start. Well, how much time do you get? Next week, the Eagles are actually going to have some off-season workouts. Are you going to have access to it? Are you and oh, by the way, they can do something in the last week of April that they're going to do completely different come June, July, August, and all the way through the season. How much time do you guys get next week?
There's nothing to watch in phase one. Phase one is strength and conditioning, unless you want to watch a bunch of guys lifting weights and rehab, and you can meet. Obviously, we're not going to be involved with that. The off-field stuff, the on-field stuff doesn't start till later in May. And that's where we'll get it. We'll probably get a couple players to interview. Maybe Slay's one of them. He's typically, one of the go-to guys. Jalen's going to talk next week. Obviously, when he puts pen to paper officially. So some of the bigger name players, I assume, will be available. And obviously the draft, we'll get to meet all the new players. But yeah, the all on-field stuff doesn't start till May. I can look up the dates in the break, but that first phase of off-season work is just strength and conditioning, rehab, stuff like that.
Getting back into the building for those who haven't been. Got it. All right. Anything else from the coaching hires? You mentioned McDonald got the DB coach, which we didn't know if he's going to be promoted to it. Good on him. My brother from another mother, DK McDonald, Anything else jump out at you as far as moving guys around, promotions? I don't think there was anything really unexpected, was there? Other than Matt Patricia. Other than Matt Patricia.
Yeah. Kevin Patullo. Everything else was reported. I knew Tyler Scudder was going to get a promotion. Nick had mentioned that before. It turned out to be assistant linebackers coach. Alex Tanney, we already knew, was going to be the quarterbacks coach, so that's a big one. So, and as I mentioned, Tabor Johnson, Ronnell Williams, that was reported a couple of weeks ago, was going to be their first slot coach, just slot specific. So,
right.
You know, the staff is expanding. They had to get a new quality control coach. That came out, I think, last week. It was going to be Mike D'Angelo. But no, most of the stuff was in place. The big surprise is Matt Patricia. The only things we learned yesterday was Kevin's new title, associate head coach, adding to passing game coordinator. We didn't know if Tabor was going to be the secondary coach and DK would stay the assistant. But, you know, DK's been here long enough, so that makes some sense that he gets the promotion and Tabor comes in as the assistant. And then, as I mentioned, Scudder, Nick had mentioned he was going to promote him, but nobody knew exactly where. So assistant linebackers.
Right. And the biggest part of the coaching staff, let's be honest, wasn't really touched on yesterday. It's going to be the two guys who are coming in as the two new coordinators, and can they fill the shoes of the two departed head coaches now of the Indianapolis Colts and the Arizona Cardinals? We won't know. We're going to have to let they can talk a good game. They can be good to the media guys. They can come in, be gruff, and be knuckleheads. It doesn't matter till Sunday start in September, and we'll see if they can do as good a job as the guys they're replacing. All right, John McMullen, I'm Jody McDonald. We're planning on talking draft all day today, but the coaching staff has kind of jumped off with the Matt Patricia hire, no hire on the website, disappears. Kind of a fun story, and we'll see if it's fun when he gets to coach Darius Slay during the year. That's going to be even more fun. It's always fun when we get a chance to talk to Eddie Kratz. Special K is going to join us a little later. Mike Garafolo from the NFL Network. So we got two good guests coming your way. Keep it right here with Mac and Mac.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today, and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Friday here on Birds 365 with your Mac guys, McMullen and McDonald. We are joined by our bud, Big Ed Kratz, who looks ready for the draft. 6 days and counting. Are you ready, Kratz?
I'm ready to go, baby. Hard to believe that in 1 week we'll know who the Eagles did or didn't take, next Thursday night when everything gets underway. But I'm psyched. It's so unpredictable, this draft, that I'm pretty excited to see how it turns out.
I think, the draft is, I always say, obviously the Super Bowl is the biggest thing for the NFL, but if you think about it, it's only 2 teams, whereas, the draft, all 32 teams are involved and fans are so excited, so hyped up that they're going to get the next superstar. And it starts here in Philadelphia with Bijan Robinson, as we know, Ed Kratz. How we said that word yesterday, unique, and everybody was jumping to conclusions. Well, that means Bijan. That means Bijan. He said unique. Does that mean Bijan, Ed Kratz?
Well, he is unique, isn't he? I mean, he's a guy that
is
can
he?
catch.
I don't know.
I mean, he's a guy that he can catch the ball out of the backfield. So, apparently he runs really good routes. These draft people that study this stuff say he can run routes. So you can line them up wide, you can line them in the slot, you can play them all 3 downs. That probably makes him unique among today's running backs, that he can play all 3 downs.
Now, let me interject, because a lot of people say McMullen hates Robinson. I don't hate Robinson. I think he's one of the best players in this draft. I don't think the Eagles are taking him. But I look at Saquon Barkley and I say to myself, is he more unique than Saquon Barkley? Now, me personally, I don't think so. And I wouldn't take Saquon at number 10. And I think he's really good. And the Giants took him at number 2, obviously. So they were in the same category. Where do you guys see him? I'll throw that out to both of you. Where as far as an Ezekiel Elliott, I think he's more athletic, and Ezekiel Elliott had a great first 3-4 years of his career. But Saquon to me is a better comp. Is he better than Saquon?
I don't know. I mean, Saquon's been hurt. Hard to tell. He's had a good career, but it's all based on usage. Maybe the Giants didn't feel like they could, they wanted to line him up wide. They've been through a couple different coaches over there. Maybe they just never figured out Saquon and what he can do. I think in a Nick Sirianni run offense, I think Nick Sirianni knows exactly what he would do with Bijan Robinson. So, he's probably more valuable on that front. I mean, if Saquon Barkley was in this offense, maybe they're lining him up wide. I don't know. But I just think you have to let guys stand on their own. I'm not a big comp guy. I don't like to compare guys to other guys, especially ones that have been in the league like Saquon has for a while. Maybe they just never figured out that, hey, we can put him out wide and throw him the football, 35 times a season. Bijan, I think you can do that.
I do like to compare guys to other guys, but here's where I would make my comparison to what you thought of them when they were coming into the draft. If you want to go back and look at what the guy's now done for his entire career and compare a player who's being drafted, I don't think that's right or fair. I don't.
No, I agree. I'm going back to when Saquon came in. To me, Saquon's
and I
like
thought
a better
Saquon
prospect.
was better,
Yeah.
but that's why he went at number 2. So is the difference enough to say, oh, you can't touch him at 10? No, that's 8 slots in the first round. That's a pretty big difference. If he's not quite Saquon Barkley, it doesn't mean you can't take him at 10. The Eagles can.
Well, yeah, but I'm not.
will.
But from my perspective, I'm not comparing slots, because I wouldn't have taken Saquon at number 2, and I think Saquon's a better prospect. I wouldn't take him at number 2. I probably wouldn't have taken him at number 10.
So you truly you're buying into the NFL philosophy of running backs. Running backs are close to a dime a dozen at this.
Well, it's not that they're a dime a dozen. It's the value isn't there. We talk a lot about, and Howie talks a lot about it, and valuation, and it's got to match up with where you are. And the Eagles don't expect to be. He mentioned that, Ed. They don't expect to be in this position again in the near future, because they're going to be a pretty good team. And from that perspective, that means you got to take advantage of it. You and I were on that Mark Dominic call earlier this week, and Mark brought it up. Don't be surprised if he goes up. And I think if he's going up, he's probably going up to get Jalen Carter. He never talks about players, but he mentioned Dom DeSandro. We trust Dom. Dom's going to find out the information. Boy, I think Jalen Carter is the player they want. I'm just reading tea leaves. Thoughts on Jalen Carter?
Well, he talk about unique. I mean, he's pretty unique too, right? He can play all 4 spots along that defensive line, inside, outside, over the nose. You can line him up anywhere. Is he the safest pick in this draft? No, I think Bijan Robinson is the safest pick for the Eagles. I mean, he's if you want a guy that's going to come in year one and make the veterans like Kelsey and Graham and Cox and Lane Johnson happy because, hey, he's going to make an immediate impact, and he's your guy. You bring in Jalen Carter. I mean, there's a lot of red flags with Jalen Carter, and it seems like such an un-Howie Roseman type of a pick. He likes guys that like to play ball, and that's a question mark with Jalen Carter. How much does he like football? What's his passion for the game? It's a huge red flag when you show up for the biggest job interview of your life. I don't care what's going on in your life. You come in 9 pounds overweight and you can't even finish your workout. That to me is a huge red flag. Now, listen, I know they can have Dom DeSandro look into the past, but you have to question what's inside his heart, and there's no measurement for that. Dom DeSandro can't get to the bottom of that. And that to me is a huge concern. Now, Howie might say, well, we have Fletcher Cox, we have Brandon Graham, his teammate
Jordan Davis, Jacoby,
old teammate Jordan Davis. Those guys will set him straight, and they'll get him, playing 100% every single snap. I don't think it works like that. And to me, that would be a really, really big gamble to take Jalen Carter. There's no question in his talent, but he doesn't play every down. He doesn't bring it every single down, because I'm not sure he likes the game as much as the Eagles like.
Gotta love ball. Gotta love ball.
And I'm not sure Carter does.
All right. So then, Ed, what do you make of Dan Campbell coming out yesterday and saying, we felt much better about Jalen Carter after we had him in for his pre-draft visit? You think he's just whistling in the wind, or do you think that Jalen Carter won over the Lions? And if that's the case, the Eagles are going to have to jump up pretty damn high if they want Jalen Carter to get out of the Lions.
Well, there you go. Maybe it's a smokescreen Dan Campbell's throwing out there for other teams. Hey, you want Jalen Carter? We're going to take him because we love him. We loved his interview, which is all well and good. And maybe they did. I've never met Jalen Carter. I don't know. I've seen him interviewed on television, but, I've never met him or talked to him. So, I don't know. I can't make a judgment. I just know what's out there, the available evidence that we've seen. And, it's a concern. And maybe Dan Campbell is just saying, hey, we're not going to take Carter. We're going to go with a cornerback because we just traded Jeffrey Okudah. But, hey, come on up and get him if other teams want him. We'll trade with you. Maybe the Eagles trade with the Lions and take Jalen Carter in that spot if he gets past Seattle. But, you're taking a mighty big gamble if you take Jalen Carter. Whereas if you take Bijan Robinson, smooth as can be. You know what you're getting.
Eddie's still on that Bijan bandwagon. I like it, Ed. Stick to your guns, buddy. Don't give up before the draft next Thursday night. But I did read an article you wrote this week about edge pass rushers. So I know you come on with us and you're on the Bijan bandwagon, but if I were a betting man, and it depends on who's on the board, I'd love to wait until after pick 9 comes in and then say, I can tell you exactly who the Eagles are going to take. that would be pretty damn easy. But I think there's a real good chance they're going to take a pass rusher. I think it's going to be either a lineman or a pass rusher. And if I knew which were left on each side of the ball, I'd give you a no doubt about it. This is the guy pick. We don't. So if they do go pass rusher at 10, who do you think the Eagles are leaning toward, Eddie?
Yeah, I mean, again, based on the unique thing that Howie threw out there, we're looking for a unique player. I mean, who on that defensive edge is a unique player? Maybe Nolan Smith.
Yep.
Because, he can rush, he can drop into coverage. I think he had an interception at Georgia while he was there. He could be that kind of unique fit that Howie was talking about. Quick first step, can get in the backfield, very good pass rusher who can develop. It could be Nolan Smith. I think they like a bigger guy on the outside. I mean, I'm not sure where Miles Murphy fits in this whole thing, but there was a lot of buzz about the Clemson defensive end, a couple months ago about him possibly being a top 10 pick. And then that kind of cooled off a little bit. But,
yeah.
Miles Murphy, I think, could play his way.
I hope Murphy's the guy.
I'm gonna who I'm gonna throw at you guys, and who the Eagles like, Lucas Van Ness, and for that reason that Ed said, they want the size, but he can play inside. He's unique. He can move around. Miles Murphy, good player, but he's more of a base left end, as we said.
Right.
Van Ness can move up and down the line of scrimmage. Now, I think with Nolan Smith and Lucas Van Ness, those would be the two guys to me for the Eagles. I think they prefer to drop down a few spots if they could and get one of them. But if they're forced and say, I think they're just going to take the one they like the best. And boy, I'm not there, but I'm starting to lean to Van Ness because of that versatility.
Yeah, I keep coming back to a clip I saw of Van Ness rushing against Peter Skoronski, who's, one of the top offensive linemen in the draft. And he just pushed Skoronski right back into the Northwestern quarterback's lap. I mean, he's a strong guy, and there's no question about it. He could be the pick. But again, is he the safest pick in the draft? It's a big risk to take. Big projection with Van Ness. But he could be the guy. I think, like you said, I think they really do want to trade back. And I asked Howie this yesterday, how many players does he have first round grades on? And he wouldn't take the bait on that.
That's right.
By the way, I love how he said, am I going to give you anything? No.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but he's too smart for that, but I thought maybe he would, say, hey, we got 17 first round grades on players, but he didn't go there. So I think if you're the Eagles and you're Howie Roseman and you want to trade back, I don't think you're going to go back too far, because I think the consensus is this is like an 18 player deep draft for first rounders somewhere in that neighborhood.
I agree. If they go back, it's like they went up for Jordan Davis last year, a couple spots,
right?
Targeted trade down. I think, because I think they like Smith and Van Ness, and they're like, if we can get one of them, I think it's going to be one of that deals. If we can drop down a few spots and get something extra, they'd be happy with either. That's the way I'm leaning a week out.
Yeah, and listen, it depends on the quarterbacks. Everybody thinks, okay, if the 4 quarterbacks come off really early, then that will help the Eagles. But I think that would be better if there were quarterbacks left on the board that other teams can come up to number 10.
Oh yeah,
to take, and maybe even a Hendon Hooker's in that mix. I think 10 would be a little too high for him, but we saw the Chiefs when they took Mahomes, they jumped all the way up, I think, to number 10.
Yeah, got killed for it by many. At the time. Yeah,
that's right. So I think you could see a team if there's one of these top 4 and maybe Hooker are still there at 10. Maybe the Commanders try to come up, even though I love Sam Howell, Jody. You know that, man. I'm ready for the Sam Howell show down there in D.C. But what if the Commanders? I think they're 16. What if they come up to 10 and you go back to 16? Then
I got bad news for you, Ed. You know who the Commanders? What's good news for your Sam Howell fandom? You know who the Commanders are going to take? Bijan Robinson, and Eagle fans will watch him twice a year, every year, for a minimum of his first 5 years in the league. And we'll get to debate how he made a mistake by passing on him for the next half a decade. That's my prediction for the draft. You want me to go on record now? Bijan 16, Washington Commanders. Write it down.
I'm not writing that down. That's not going to happen. The Commanders
right.
have Brian Robinson. I mean, I love Brian Robinson. I think he's a good back. They still, I think, have Antonio Gibson, right? I don't know.
Yeah, but that's, I always tell, Jody knows, I always tell my FU player story. When I was covering the Vikings back in the day, they had a really good back by the name of Chester Taylor. And they were, he was coming off like a 1,200-yard season and caught the football well out of the backfield, had 50-something catches. And, they were in the top 10, and they needed a lot of help. And they drafted Adrian Peterson. And I was like, I was asking one of the personnel guys, I was asking, like, you guys got a good running back. You need a lot of help. And he said, no, you don't understand. This guy's different. And, the description he said is, fuck Chester Taylor, because he's different. And he turned out to be right. So I've always called them FU players. Now, maybe Bijan's an FU player. But that was a different time where running backs were more important, even though, it's not that long ago.
Right. But here would be my question to you then, John. Is Bijan Robinson an FU player at 16, but not at 10?
Maybe.
Oh, man. That either you're an FU player or you're not. I don't see where 6 slots in the draft.
Well, he's an FU player.
You from an FU player to a non-FU player.
He's an FU player compared to Antonio Gibson. That's the comparison. Like, Antonio Gibson,
an FU players compared to Kenny Gainwell.
Yeah, but the Eagles, you know what? My favorite quote of that press conference came from Nick Sirianni yesterday. And again, these guys aren't under oath, it's not. But I thought, and I got it down. We didn't pay him more to do less, is what Nick said about Jalen Hurts. We didn't pay him more to do less. So everyone is going this assumption, or you're paying him $255 million, you're paying him $179 million guaranteed. Oh, you got to protect him. You got to protect him. No, they're going to play him the way he plays. That made him a superstar player. And that, to me, is why I continue to go. They do not need Bijan Robinson on this team because of Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts makes running backs better. They don't need the best running back. They don't need him because of Jalen Hurts. That, to me, is what makes the Eagles different. Other teams are obviously having, in different situations, where a more traditional running game, he could help them a lot more than he could help the Eagles. Not that he couldn't help the Eagles, because he's better than Rashad Penny or Kenny Gainwell or Boston Scott. But it's not, they need a defensive lineman. They need an offensive lineman. That is the reason why I just dismiss Bijan Robinson for Philadelphia. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's the reason.
I was going to say, it's all well and good to say we didn't pay Jalen more to do less, but he's 24 years old. Eventually, you can't play him the way he's playing. It's just not going to work. He's going to get hit. He's going to wear down. Look at Lamar Jackson. Great first couple of years. He's hurt. Josh Allen in Buffalo talked about evolving his game now. He's 27. He doesn't want to take as many hits, and he doesn't even run as much as Jalen Hurts.
Well, he's reckless, though. He's reckless.
He's and listen, Jalen got, he got waffled in Chicago. He got hit running the ball and landed on the hard turf, and he's lucky he escaped further injury than on that shoulder than what he did. I just don't see this Jalen Hurts run the ball, the +1 in the backfield going on for the life of this contract. I just don't. And if you bring in a running back whose cost, you have him under control for 5 years, you get the 5th-year option, you're probably picking that up. Jalen Hurts will be 27, 28. He's not going to be running the ball as much. You need somebody to take that pressure off of him. And I thought Mark Dominic said it well, is once you invest, I think it was Mark Dominic, once you invest in a quarterback, you have to make sure you can have a controllable running back for the foreseeable future, because you're not going to be able to invest a lot of resources in a running back. Why not take one in the first round as good as Jalen Hurts or Bijan Robinson, or even Jahmyr Gibbs? I mean, I like Jahmyr Gibbs a lot too. And maybe you can get him later in the draft. But to me, that 5th year is pretty important to have. And that's what I think Bijan brings some value is he will protect Jalen Hurts. And it's, Nick can get on his high horse and say, hey, we don't want him to do less. But that's great when he's 24. How about when he's 25 and 26 and Bijan's in the 2nd and 3rd year of that contract? Then let's see where Jalen Hurts is.
I'm not worried until we get later into the 20s with Jalen. I think you're right, Ed. At some point, Nick can say all that he wants. At some point, they're going to have him running less. He's going to get beat up, older.
Yeah, but I agree with you guys. But I think that's a natural evolution, and hopefully by that point, Jalen's 30, and hopefully everything goes well. And by that point, he's more comfortable just turning around and handing the football off, and you can evolve. And I think that's the hope from the Eagles standpoint. But right now, I think he's telling the truth, because that's not the first time. That was the best quip, but that's not the first time Nick has said that. He has said, we're not taking away his superpower. He said that, which was a good quote. He has said it pretty consistently. I don't think he's lying to us. I don't.
Nor do I. And I think you're both right, partially. I don't think Jalen Hurts' superpower is going to last till he's 33 years old, which, oh, by the way, the Eagles are banking on. Don't kid yourself. They have to believe that Jalen Hurts is going to be their quarterback into his 30s, because they're going to have to do another deal with him. 3 years into this deal, they're going to be looking at the biggest dead cap hit in the history of the National Football League. So they're going to have to do another deal, which means Jalen Hurts is going to be their quarterback into his 30s. And at some point, they're going to have to go, we better take some of this off his plate. Otherwise, he's not going to be alive. So I think you're right, Ed, when you say they do need to make it easier. John, I think you're right when you say they're not doing it today. We need to find that soft spot in the middle. Probably 2 years from now, maybe 3 years from now, they're going to need a major upgrade at running back. I don't think they're dying to do it here in year number 1. So that's why I'm kind of with John. I don't think they're going to take Bijan, but if they do, I'll be okay with it, Ed, because you're right. And any little reduction can't be necessarily a bad reduction. I just don't think they want to do it year 1. But if they take Bijan, he's going to be here for 5 years too. So you'll be able to cash that check.
Yeah, and that's where the benefit of Howie and his staff. I mean, they look at drafts, they look at who's coming out. Not only next year but the year after. I mean, they track these things, and that's what they talked about when they took Carson Wentz. Was we looked at the draft next year and the draft after that, and we didn't see any quarterbacks that we thought would be at the same level of Carson Wentz. So that's why they went up to get him. So I don't know what's out there in the 2025 draft or the 2024 draft. I don't know, but the Eagles do, because that's the kind of thing they look at. So maybe there is a running back out there that they feel like, hey, he can come in 2 years and be our guy, so we don't have to take Bijan. I don't know. I try hard not to get too deep into the draft weeds looking that far out, but the Eagles do.
Yeah, they do. Contract wise, coaching wise, everything. They're very focused on sort of trying to serve the two masters, obviously being very competitive right now, but keeping an eye on the future. I guess with Jody and I started the show talking about Matt Patricia, so we got to give your thoughts on Matt Patricia, because that was a little bit of a funny story. Obviously somebody jumped the gun on the website, but he's going to be here as a senior defensive assistant, which, in a typical city team. So what, guys? Been a long time Bill Belichick assistant. Former head coach. In theory, he could help, but man, Darius Slay has not been shy about expressing their relationship wasn't on the best of terms. He's a team leader. He's a team captain. A little bit surprised Nick Sirianni went down this road.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't think it's a very smart move, but I might be wrong. I mean, they've talked to him. I haven't talked to Matt Patricia. But I don't like it. I don't like it for that reason, that it could upset the apple cart with Slay. I'm keep waiting to hear him hit social media to say something.
I was checking. He didn't say something.
But I'm sure the Eagles, and Nick said they talked to him about it, but Maybe those two have even spoken and have had a conversation. I would hope so. But yeah, I don't like.
I would bet against.
Probably not, and that's I just don't like it. And listen, he's one of those guys. When the Eagles hit that Philly special in the Super Bowl, they showed his face, I guess, and it was like he looked like completely shocked. He had the pencil behind the ear. I mean, in Philadelphia, he's kind of a villain, I think. I just don't like the move at all. And maybe he'll bring the wisdom of being Bill Belichick's right-hand man for a while, but I think there's too many risks involved with bringing him on here.
Yeah, I do like it. Here's the only way you can like it. In Nick, we trust. You have to trust that Sirianni knows what he's going to get out of him, how he's going to handle Slay, has already laid the ground rules, felt out Slay about it, and then told Matt, here's how you're going to relate with Slay if you want to be on my staff. And Matt Patricia signed off on it. And again, this is all speculation on my part, but I've got to believe that's the way it has happened. And I think that Sirianni's got that kind of gravitas, even just 2 years into his NFL coaching career, that he could lay the groundwork and lay the ground rules for a guy like Patricia. And if you can get he has had some pretty good success as a defensive coach with the New England Patriots before his ill-fated head coaching stint.
His
with
Juan Castillo move. Yeah.
And his even more ill-fated taking over the offense in New England last year. But that's on Belichick. That's not on him. Hey, turn back the clock. He's a pretty damn good defense coordinator for the Patriots. You can add that kind of talent to your staff. I think you got to do it.
Well, and again, Sean Desai, I mean, they just hired him to be the DC. I know he had 1 year in that role with the Bears, but what does he think of the move too? It's not just Slay. What does he feel with now Matt Patricia kind of looking over his shoulder? Does he feel confident enough that Patricia's not here to take his job and that he has autonomy over the defense? It's another question.
Now, that's an interesting point.
Legit.
I haven't thought about that much yet. I did, kind of, I've talked a lot about the 70 sacks and the second-ranked defense and the number one passing defense. And I said, Ed, even if you went to an uncapped league and you were able to keep Javon Hargrave and C.J. Gardner-Johnson and T.J. Edwards and Marcus Epps and everybody else, even if you were able to keep those guys, even if you got Jonathan Gannon back, they weren't going to have that same season. So many guys had career years. So many guys produced at a level they never produced. Howie talked about it yesterday as in regards to health. He's like, we're very aware that we got lucky on health and it's probably not going to happen that way. And everybody's going to play and everybody's, Kaiser and TJ Edwards, Nakobe Dean can get play because they never left the field. They played all 20 games. They never were hurt. It's pretty amazing, that kind of stuff. My point being, even in the best case scenario, it was going to take a little bit of a step back. Now, Sean Desai comes in, these massive expectations. He doesn't have Javon Hargrave. Right now he's got Nakobe Dean, Nicholas Morrow, Reed Blankenship, and Terrell Edmonds. That's, right up the middle of the field. Now he's got Matt Patricia. Philadelphia, Ed, if this goes south early and they're giving up 30 points a game, the pressure's going to ramp up really, really quickly. And when you have a big name in the building who maybe can fix the defense right away, I hadn't thought of that, but that could create some issues.
Absolutely. And we'll see how it plays out. I mean, you're rattling off those up the middle names, and boy, you kind of cringe a little bit. Dean, Morrow, Blankenship, and Edmonds compared to Gardner Johnson and TJ and Kaiser, and it's a concern. You're talking me into Brian Branch here, another unique player in the draft.
I love
Johnny Mack loves Brian Branch.
Yeah, he can play everywhere in that second. He can play the slot. He can play.
I think he's a perfect fit for this team.
Yeah,
I don't know if he'll be there at 30, but if he's there,
how about 10?
Yeah. I can't go that high. Yeah,
but listen, again, if they trade back a couple spots, maybe. You draft him as a defensive back more than you do a safety, and then you
I think
figure out
he's
where
I
he
think
can
he's
play.
a perfect fit for how they play defense. I really
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. And Desai could use some help. Just hearing you rattle off, Desai needs, I think, a few more pieces on that defense so he doesn't feel Matt Patricia's breath on the back of his neck.
And again, I guess I'm putting a lot on the head coach's plate. I did prior to the official, unofficial, shows up on the website, disappears on the website, Matt Patricia hiring. I think Nick did what he needed to do behind the scenes to make sure everybody was copacetic with it. I'll say same thing about Sean Desai as his defensive coordinator. He's going to have his back. He hired him. He's going to have to say, this is the call, and here's where we made a mistake, whatever. Not make excuses, but when there is an explanation for it, he's going to be the one who's going to have to explain it. I think he's going to have to take his new defensive coordinators back plenty. If he doesn't, you're right. The overlooking Matt Patricia story will become a bigger story. But if Nick says that Sean Desai is doing exactly what they want to do and it's his philosophy and his way of playing defense, I think Desai will be okay, at least within the building. Now, Eagle Nation, that's another story because they basically hate all of their defensive coordinators not named Jim Johnson. So he's going to hear about it from the fans, but in the building, I think it'll be perfectly fine if Nick takes his DCs back.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Nick has had his coaches back. So look at Michael Clay, under fire for the special teams. And
that one I still don't get.
I know. And Nick is unwavering in his support of Michael Clay.
Correct.
And it's interesting that he has all his coaches backs, but when it came time to bench himself and put Shane Steichen in charge of the offense, he had no problem doing that, which is interesting. So, you're right. I think he will have Desai's back no matter how bad it could potentially get. And I don't think it will, but if it does, he'll have his back for sure.
At Kratz E, make sure you follow Ed on Twitter. You can read him at si.com/NFL/Eagles, Eagles Today there. I guess I'll end it with sort of day 2 picks. We're talking so much about 10 and 30. One, if you look at the top 30 visits, and they don't mean everything, but the Eagles really had a theme. They went with a lot of interior defensive linemen as well, and day 2 guys, like potential picks there. I don't even want names necessarily. If you got names, great, but if day 2, Ed, positionally, do you think they're going to lean a certain way? We know Howie, best player available, blah, 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 but to a certain degree, but you also need certain things. And we just talked about up the middle. You getting a feel for positions on day 2?
Yeah, it's so hard to talk about day 2 because you don't know what day 1's going to bring.
Yeah.
So, their needs are, I think, up the middle. Like you say, I think safety could certainly be in that mix. I think offensive line, again, depending where they go in the first round, that, they lost 2 guys. They lost Ciamalu and Dillard, and even Josh Sill, who's not back from, the trouble he got into at the Super Bowl last year. So, you want to keep that part of things strong for sure. So you could go corner, safety. I mean, I like Jair Brown a lot from Penn State as a safety, but I don't know if second round would be too high for him. I don't know. But there'll be some players at those positions. I like Cody Mauch a lot from North Dakota State as a lineman because he's a unique player. He can play all 5 spots on that offensive line like Isaac Ciamalu could when they drafted him back in 2016. So I like Cody Mauch a lot. Who knows if he'll be there when they pick in the second round? I think, what is it, number 62? And then linebacker.
Hold on. Cody Mauch, is he the guy who looks like he's a member of the Viking Raiders of WWE?
I don't think Ed knows that.
Okay.
He's the amateur wrestling guy.
He looks like, a Broad Street bully from the 1970s. Yeah. He's missing his front teeth. He's got the red, wild, crazy hair.
Big red beard.
He reminds me of Ryan Jensen. Ryan Jensen in Tampa Bay. Remember when Ryan got hurt in that playoff game? and it looked like he was out. It was sort of like a Jason Kelsey moment. And I swear he came out like a snorting bull, like it was a rodeo. That guy's intimidating. That's who he reminds me of.
Yeah, I like Cody Mock a lot. Is he going to be there at 62? I don't know. So yeah, I mean, I was going to say linebacker. Certainly, are you happy with Morrow, Dean, and Sean Bradley, and Christian Ellis at that linebacker spot? Davion Taylor. I mean, they need more there, and
they don't seem to think so because they're talking about they just don't want to pay anybody to play linebacker.
Well, they took Michael Kendricks in the second round back in, I don't know.
Well, they took Nakobe. They're fine on that first deal. Like I said,
they never would have taken Nakobe though. If Nakobe didn't drop to the third round, they would have taken him.
But by the way, with Nakobe, look, he's got a ton of potential. But even if he hits and turns into this great player, they're going to get rid of him. So enjoy it while you can. If you're a Nakobe Dean fan, I know Jody is. Enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, 3 good years out of him before he starts to make too much money for the Eagles to pay him.
Yeah.
All right, last thing, and I want both of you guys' take on this. Ed, this for you as well before you go. The one thing I was reading between the lines that Howie said yesterday, and it's a pretty good between the lines, and I might be well off, but when he was talking about undrafted free agents, that's a key part, that he went into details of, you realize that other than first and second round picks, there are more undrafted free agents than there are later round picks. And he highlighted the guys that the Eagles have signed who have been undrafted free agents, and one of which who may start for them next year, and Reed Blankenship. Did you read into that, if I don't get draft capital, if I don't fill that 3rd, 4th, and 5th round slots, that we might not be able to trade back and do what everybody thinks we're going to do? Yeah, we're just going to be great at signing undrafted free agents. So don't sweat that. If we make less draft picks this year, we'll be good because we're really good at signing undrafted free agents. That was some serious reading between the lines I did. Too much?
No, he's sort of stealing himself and stealing the fan base. That, hey, don't panic because we're going to do a bang-up job in the undrafted free agent part of this draft. Don't forget about those guys.
That's the way I read it. Maybe I overread it.
Yeah, well, it's one of the reasons why I'm still shocked that the Eagles didn't re-sign TJ Edwards. And maybe they couldn't have. Maybe he just wanted to go back to Chicago. But, they take pride in that kind of stuff. And they take pride in pointing out, as Jody said, look at how smart we are. The Eagles' best rookie last year was Reed Blankenship on the field.
Undrafted.
On the field, he was their best rookie.
He played the most, that's for sure. He got the most.
And he played well. Played well.
And he better play well this upcoming year because they're going to be leaning on him.
I thought it was interesting how he said, too, about, the draft picks. He goes, we may only have 2 players, come out of this with 2 players. He was only joking, but, that was the implication where they're going to trade all the way up to try to get somebody, and they're going to have to
Jalen Carter.
Well, maybe they go to number 3 with the Cardinals and take Will Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, if they can get Will Anderson, but I think Will might be going number 2 now.
Well, we'll see. That's the thing. Maybe they trade up if Will's still sitting there at 3, and Howie's going to give up he's going to give up the ship to go up and get him. We'll see. I mean, he even pointed out that there's going to be a lot of surprises in this draft. He said 5 or 6 times you guys are going to say, whoa, when someone drafts somebody. And I think the Eagles are going to have a big whoa on Thursday night.
Could be Howie doing the whoa. We go whoa whenever Ed Kratz joins us. Ed, I love you. Even though I don't think they're going to get Bijan Robinson. I don't think they're going to trade down and get Bijan. I don't think they're going to stay at 10 again. I don't think it's happening. But I like the fact that you've stuck to your guns.
There's room on the train, fellas. Always room on the Bijan train. Hop on board.
Howie did use that word yesterday, unique. And he is a little bit of a unique talent. So
the moment they take him, I'll jump on the train. Not until then.
Yep. Hop on. Always room.
Eddie, good stuff.
Thanks,
pleasure,
guys.
bud. We'll talk to you again soon enough. Have a fun week preparing for the draft.
Yep. Have a good weekend.
Ed Kratz, John's running mate at Sports Illustrated, here with us on Birds 360.
By the way, Jody, I'm on the plane. I'm going down with the plane, so I can't get on the train. I'm going down. If I got to go down on the plane, they're not taking a running back.
Yeah, that's true. You will have died on the plane. Don't know how you get
Yeah, so you can't get on the
climb
train.
back up onto the Bijan bandwagon. It's going to be a bit
Yeah.
of a tough climb for you. I give you that. All right, McMullen and McDonald, your Mac and Mac guys coming back. More Birds 365 in just a couple.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Got John McMullen and Jody McDonald hanging with you on a Football Friday on Birds 365. Got a bunch to sink our teeth into today with the fact that Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni both spoke to the assembled media yesterday. Bit of a surprise out of left field, not only revisiting, but making it official. Matt Patricia, part of the Eagles staff going forward. What's the relationship going to be between he and Slay? And, of course, Howie and Nick talking about what the Eagles are going to do in the draft without even talking about what the Eagles are going to do in the draft. They weren't going to give you any gritty details, but they gave you a little behind the scenes on philosophy and how the Eagles go about it. One thing that was interesting, John, and I got to give credit here, your question about the changes in the Eagles front office, that guys have come and gone, and how does that affect draft day, and how he kind of, I was pretty much buying what he was selling. I didn't think it wasn't all that enlightening, but it was interesting that he likes to change things up. He likes to get different people into the mix because it changes the dynamic, and they bring things from their previous experience and they blend that in with what they did. He told a pretty good tale. Were you buying what he was selling, that changed is a good thing in the draft process for the Eagles with some people moving on and new people coming in?
Yeah, I a little bit. I think that's natural. When you have some newness, it gets you a little bit more juiced. I remember talking to Jason Kelsey about, that when Nick Sirianni came here, and like, because Jason loved Doug Peterson, but he was like, it's a little bit different when you've been playing as long as him, and he also loves the fact that he doesn't have to practice now. But
likes Nick's way of doing things.
But I mean, you have that newness, and I think it's just natural to have a little bit of pep in your step at the beginning. So yeah, I was buying it. I think, now doesn't mean it's good though. In the case of Nick, it's been good. He's been a really good head coach through 2 seasons. We'll see. I mean, the draft is what it is, and you won't even know this year. And people look at last year already and say Jordan Davis can't do this, and Cam Jurgens played 40 snaps, and Nakobe Dean played 34 snaps, and nobody played, and that's a bad draft, and that you're already people on that bandwagon. You really got to wait 3 years if you want to be fair, and that's tough to do in the modern environment. But it'll eventually shake out if these guys are doing a good job or a poor job, and but if you go back to Andy Weidel, he did a pretty good job. And you go back to Joe Douglas, did a pretty good job overall. And that's sort of the standard you're looking at.
And I know there are very few follow-up questions when you guys are there. There's a whole bunch of you guys there and only so many questions to be allowed and asked. But I give them the credit. They did stay over 35 minutes, which was a nice lengthy period of time they gave you guys. I was waiting for the McMullen follow-up because we talked about this on the show yesterday. Who's going to be manning the phones? Because you're in the middle of the draft. Howie has been as big a mover and shaker, trading up, trading back, as anyone this side of Belichick in the NFL. He can't be on the phone with all the teams at the same time. As good as he is, he can't do that. He can't be in 2 places at once. So he's got to give that responsibility to someone. And you and I debated a little bit yesterday on the assistant general managers, who are not necessarily hands-on football guys or hadn't been previously to getting their new titles. I thought you were going to jump in and go, yeah, but who's going to be on the phones with you, Howie, during the draft? You didn't get
Well, that's one of those things I know he's not going to answer. Now, he might answer that, in as we get to training camp, we'll get some off the record stuff, and he might go into it a little bit more deeply in that type of environment. But I think I said earlier this week, I mean, he's going to default to his assistant GMs. I mean, because he gave him the job, he gave him the title. So
yeah, but hold on. Let me follow up with that. They gave Kevin Patullo a new title yesterday. What does it mean? Nothing.
No.
So
well, that's the bigger
title could mean nothing. That they just slapped it
And
on so that he didn't have to give the assistant general manager title to someone who would actually be involved on a draft night deal.
And by the way, with Kevin Patullo, now the title itself might mean nothing, but like, he's really important to Nick Sirianni.
Oh yeah,
I knew that early on when he first got the job. Kevin was the guy doing sort of the legwork for him, and he made it very clear, sort of like his consigliere. I mean, that's who Kevin Patullo is. So he's really, like, I don't know what Alec Hallaby and John Ferrari are to Howie Roseman, other than, a lot of people have speculated that he doesn't want a personnel guy next to him because they get all the credit. Well, Howie's not a football guy, that kind of thing. We've heard it on this show. I think it was Chris Landry. He's been hearing that for years. So, well, that must be an Andy Weidel pick. That must be a Joe Douglas pick. They're the personnel guys. They're the football guys. A lot of people have speculated that's the reason because he's never given out that title before. And when he gives it out to an analytics guy and a football compliance guy.
Right. That's why I want to know who's going to be on the phones. You think it's going to be one of the non-football guys. I can't believe that.
Well, it might be Dave Caldwell, like I said, but he's not going to admit it. So, it's one of those things where, like, fans want you to ask, what do you think of insert name? They say, why are you guys not asking about, and there's certain things, and he did get asked about Jalen Carter, mainly for the off the field issues. And he got asked about Bijan mainly for the positional group issues. Like, he's not going to talk about players.
Right.
That's just, that no GM worth of salt is going to talk about evaluation of players. It just doesn't work that way. So you're wasting your time if you do that, essentially. So that's sort of the reason why, fans might look at us and say, why aren't they asking that? Well, if you're not going to get an answer.
If you know the answer ahead of time, it's going to be a non-answer. You don't bother asking.
And there are some things behind the scenes you can then, get sort of background on something, as I would describe it. And that's sort of how you go about it.
Understood. And you get more information about how the draft worked after the draft is over. You might get a little off the record stuff, but you're not going to get ahead of time. Shoot. I love the fact that Howie came right out and said, well, am I going to tell you guys anything? No. that was pretty much in your face stuff.
And by the way, we're going to have Mike Garafolo on the show. And, the most interesting thing Howie said to me is, I don't talk to anybody about the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, anybody meaning outside the building. Obviously, he talks to people inside the building. And, there's a lot of people that think he feeds stuff to Adam Schefter or, it was ironic about the Matt Patricia thing. So, but how that worked out, I was telling the story. Schefter tweeted out it's official in the middle of the press conference.
And, it's right in the middle?
Right in the middle of the press conference. So, I was watching Howie. He wasn't stealth texting. So he didn't give it to Adam Schefter. So, obviously got it from the other side. Could be somebody else in the Eagles organization. But, a lot of people have speculated Mike is the guy he talks to the most. So that's up to you. You can ask that question if you want, Jody.
No, I will. I'll ask.
I'm not going to put Mike on the spot.
We might get a non-answer.
Might get a non-answer answer.
Right.
But he said, I don't talk to anybody about the Philadelphia Eagles. Anybody outside the building.
Yeah, I don't know that I believe that. That's
I don't know if I believe it either, which is why I bring it up.
That's how he in front of all the rest of you guys flexing his muscles a little bit, but that's okay. I don't have a problem with him doing that, but I'm going to throw the BS flag on that one, Howie. Sorry about that. And if you want me to put to the Garofalo when he joins us coming up in just a couple of minutes, I will do just that. One quickie before we take a timeout and then get Mike up here. The Panda-in-Chief went complete Eagles.
Yeah, how about
what happened
that?
to the Sixers, Johnny Mac? You said lock it up. It'll be guaranteed Sixers.
Yeah, I'm very shocked it wasn't Sixers. To the point was, I don't even know if Nick knew they were playing, man. I mean, that's lack of attention to detail.
Who's his? Here's you can pull back the curtain stuff again. Who's his advisor? His quote unquote PR advisor.
Bob Lang, which is funny.
Did Bob Lang drop the ball here and not get him a Sixers thing? Who he put it on, Nick or Bob Lang?
I don't know. I'll ask Bob. Maybe he'll take the he'll
take the hit for Nick.
He'll fall on the sword. There are times. There have been times. This is so funny to me. There are times that Nick will wear his Phillies gear or Sixers gear. And Bob will be off to the side with his Eagles shirt for the day. And as soon as the press conference is over, off comes the Philly stuff, off comes the Sixers stuff, all goes. So I have a little fun with the Panda-in-Chief. But
oh no.
Yeah.
He's earned that reputation. Surprised. It's not like you're the you made this stuff up out of whole cloth. No. He has absolutely earned his reputation as Panda-in-Chief.
I was surprised he was not repping the Sixers because he's very, he's become very close to Doc Rivers. You know,
That's
not,
true. He's quoted Doc Rivers in
yeah.
his post game stuff before.
Yeah. So I'm surprised he wasn't repping the Sixers.
Maybe that's why the Sixers didn't pull away until the last minute of last night's game.
Tyrese Maxey saving the day, baby.
Man, he came up big for them last night on a wacky game up there in Brooklyn. But 3-0, and we won't see Nick again till when? After the draft, we'll have a post-draft thing.
Well, day one of the draft. You know, they'll have a press conference after day one.
Howie definitely is Nick in on the day one, the night of the draft one.
Nick is there the whole time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I thought I don't know why I remembered. I remember stuff Howie saying stuff after day one of the draft, but not necessarily Nick. But that might just be my memory. All right. I remembered to text Mike Garafolo before we got to this segment, and he said yes, he did get the link. So that means he's going to join us coming up in just a couple of minutes from the NFL Network. Mike Garafolo next here on Birds 365.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Appreciate you streaming in here on a Football Friday. It's 365 with Mac and Mac. You got 3 Philly guys on here right now. McDonald, McMullen, and from the NFL Network and NFL.com, a Philly guy through and through, Mike Garafolo. Mike, how ticked off were you yesterday that Howie didn't tell you about Matt Patricia ahead of time?
Seems like that's kind of been lurking for a couple of months now.
Yeah. It's going to be linebackers coach. Yeah. What do you think of that, Mike? Because obviously Darius Slay has not been shy to express in the past that he did not have the best relationship with Matt Patricia. It's kind of a bold move from that perspective from Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, well, organizationally, I do know that this is a team that loves to bring in former GMs when they can, like how he's done that. Dave Caldwell, formerly of the Jaguars, currently on staff. So sometimes guys who get to that level and it doesn't quite work out can come in and can have a different kind of perspective. Sometimes you learn from your mistakes. You hope that. I mean, it's just the whole Patricia offensive coordinator thing was as weird as Juan Castillo years ago taking that job. I don't quite know what Belichick was thinking other than he thinks he's smarter than everybody else.
Oh, yeah.
That didn't quite work out. This one feels at least more natural to me. So let's see how it goes.
And we discussed this earlier in the show. Love your read on it. One of the potential downsides is he's had the success that he has a Super Bowl winning defense coordinator. Eagles have a rookie defensive coordinator, and Sean Desai is filling some pretty big shoes that Gannon did. If you look at it analytically, number 2 defense overall, number 1 defense against the pass, 70 some odd sacks. Good luck getting that again. He's stepping into a tough spot to begin with. Now does Matt Patricia looking over his shoulder make it even more difficult for Desai?
I mean, I wouldn't think so. I mean, Patricia's relationship with players has been questioned, certainly when he got to Detroit. I mean, I remember they hadn't even played their first game. And I remember us talking about it on Good Morning Football weekend when we had that show before their first game. And I said, I heard that these players are mentally and physically exhausted coming out of training camp. And that's really hard to do.
In this day and era,
to get these guys to beat them down that much, but they did it. But I never heard anything with regard to other coaches and any friction there. So I would think from a professional standpoint, even last year when things weren't working out between Mac Jones and Matt Patricia, there was still a good working relationship with the staff up there. So I would think that that should continue, and he wouldn't undermine anybody. But who knows? I mean, sometimes. Yeah. Who knows?
By the way, Mike, that's an interesting tidbit because obviously, he's wearing players down. He's coming to Nick Sirianni's staff. It's Club Sirianni, right? There's 31 teams already in off-season work, not the Eagles. They kicked it back a week. Mm-hmm. They had great success from a health standpoint, doing things the way they did them. So it's going to be interesting to see that dichotomy. Yeah. But we got to talk about Jalen Hurts, number 1.
Let's do it.
Yeah. 12 months, Mike. I mean, last year at this time, look, it was pretty evident that the Eagles didn't like the quarterback class. Nobody liked the quarterback class. So how he kind of kicked back to, 1 pick to the next year, just as that security blanket. They couldn't get Russell Wilson to consider Philadelphia. They couldn't get Deshaun Watson to consider Philadelphia. 12 months later, $255 million, 179 guaranteed. Have you ever seen anything like this? This is amazing, the development from year 2 to year 3.
Yeah, well, from the beginning, it's weird because you bring in a guy with a second-round pick that you think is going to be some kind of gadget player or a guy that can provide value at the backup position so you don't have to pay a veteran. Oh. And then it gets into the starter's head a little bit, along with some other things that causes his downfall. And then, Jalen Hurts is kind of the guy thrust into the job, but you could tell they're still not sold on it. I mean, the guy that they brought in, and Howie, it's turned out great for Howie and the Eagles. It has, right? But if you can go back in time and have that conversation with them at the point, you almost want to say to them, if you don't believe this guy could ever be your starter, don't take him right here. I mean, I know in your head you're thinking second round, well, our quarterback will be fine. He won't be treated that way. But he got into that role in large part because of where you took him. So you go from that to not quite having the faith in him to not explore other options, right? To, getting this huge extension. Yeah, it's been quite the ride for Jalen Hurts. And I don't think this will change him. If the Deshaun Watson stuff hanging over his head, the fact that he really wasn't the guy coming in and Carson Wentz was at the time. If all that stuff didn't get into his head, I can't imagine a big contract will. So I think Jalen Hurts is going to continue to ascend here. Where is the ceiling? And now with a full season of film in which he was incredibly successful, can they find some things defensively to kind of start to short circuit him? The one thing that I know that I heard last year was his ability to understand things, to say, hey, they're trying to do this to us. We should do this. He had some of that input too. So their counters, he's got counters for them ready to go to.
I need your take on this. The transition between Shane Steichen and Brian Johnson. We know he's got a long-standing relationship with the quarterbacks since he was a kid, but he's been his quarterback coach the last couple of years.
Yeah.
John and I both appreciate the ability of Shane Steichen to call plays. He's just really good at it from the time Sirianni passed on that responsibility. Transition, seamless, going to take some time. Rocky road. Give me your best guess scenario as to how Brian Johnson hits the ground running as the play call for the Eagles next year.
Yeah, I know that there's confidence in him from the Eagles standpoint. So we don't quite know. I mean, he had input, certainly the week leading up, obviously, but also the day of the game. So they're confident with his feedback and his thoughts that he had on the fly during the game that'll translate into his play calling as well. But you're right. I mean, I know that there was at one point, especially in the second half, when they weren't really stepping on some throats early, some folks thought, well, Steichen could be a better player. I thought he was a fantastic play caller.
Yeah,
even back to his time with the Chargers, which I was stunned that the Chargers didn't retain him when they did, but Brandon Staley wanted Joe Lombardi, who was his buddy for a long period of time. So the Eagles were fortunate to have Shane Steichen for a couple of years. It's you don't know till you're in that chair, till you got that headset. But I know that there's confidence in him, and I know that there's confidence in Kevin Patullo. I feel like Kevin doesn't get enough credit for what he does.
He's Nick's guy. He's Nick's consigliere, is what I describe him as. Mike.
Yeah, and he got an elevation yesterday.
Got the associate head coach.
Yeah. So it's been a team effort, despite the fact that Shane Steichen is the one calling the plays. So they hope that communication will continue.
All right, Mike Garapolo, you've been around this team for a long time. You know Howie Roseman. I've considered changing the name of this show to Bijan 365 as we go through the draft process. All Eagles fans, not all, but a lot of people want Bijan Robinson. Howie's not taking a running back at number 10, is he?
It would fly in the face of it would fly in the face of it would run counter to their philosophy based on conversations that I've had with Eagles folks over the last couple of years regarding other teams putting all their eggs, or not all their eggs, significant eggs in running back baskets.
Okay.
And look, I mean, Miles Sanders became a free agent. $6 million a year is not really, anything that's going to blow away a budget or a salary cap.
Yeah.
They weren't there, right? So if you're not going to pay $6 million for Miles Sanders, are you now going to commit a draft pick to Bijan Robinson, knowing that in a couple of years you're paying 15, 16, 7, whatever it is by that point, by the time you're extending him? It would run counter to everything that I have picked up regarding their philosophy of what you do at the running back position.
Fair enough, and I agree with both you guys. I think he's a unique player, and how he used that word unique, but I think he was referring to other players, not Bijan Robinson. Where do you think they'll take a running back? Do you think they'll take a running back? As of right now, they got two picks in the first, second, third, and then not again till the 7th. Are they going to make a big deal about a running back they pick in the 7th round, or are they going to use one of those picks in the first 3 rounds to take a running back if it's not going to be Bijan Robinson?
Yeah, no, there are guys to be had there. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs is talked about as a I don't want to say a 1A, but he's possibly in the first round as well, the kid from Alabama. So, maybe if as we talk this through, well, it's not really our first round pick because we use the early first round pick on a non-running back. So maybe we use the second first round pick on a running back at that point. But second round seems to have been the jumping off point for the Eagles over the years, with Howie in the building to take a running back. So I would say, once you start to get there, then it's okay. This is enough value and enough of you're out of that early range where you got to take the premier positions with your first round pick. So I would say, right around there would make sense to me if they do add a running back.
League as a whole, Mike, I think through this most of the process, the thought has been 4 quarterbacks are going to go in those first 9 picks, and that makes it better for the Eagles because then it starts pushing some of the position players down the board. lately it's been like, well, Houston, Nick says he might not take a quarterback, and all of a sudden there's some teams that maybe start going in a different direction. Buying any of that hype, or is that just silly season? Guys trying to create smoke screens.
Yeah, I'm skeptical that all 4 are going in the top 10. I am. I think it winds up being 3. And which one doesn't? I've heard mixed reviews on whether that's Will Levis or Anthony Richardson. I think the Colts are a big team when it comes to Levis, because I've heard it both ways, that they like him and that they don't like him. So if he gets by 4, possible slide could be on there. And then especially if they wind up taking Richardson instead. So, I think you're looking at 3, maybe even 2 only in the top 10. I mean, we'll see. But I would, if you're asking me right now, I would say 3 of those 4 wind up going. And then the other guy that's interesting that also is a factor, I think, is Jalen Carter, because I don't think Seattle takes him at 5. Detroit, not sure. 7, that's the Raiders. 8, the Falcons. Now, that would be close to where he went to college. And I know a lot of folks, talent evaluators, general managers, if a guy's got flags or problems or issues or whatever you want to call them, having him near where he played, where he knows a lot of people, not necessarily a good thing. So now I think, 8 could be off the board as well. 9, they've got other needs with the Chicago Bears. Does Howie take him? It's
that he gave the shout out to Dom yesterday, Dom DeSandro. They said as simple as if Dom does his homework, and they say, because a lot of, talking to Mark Dominic on his conference call earlier this week, Mike, he's saying Howie might move up, man. He doesn't have to worry about the quarterback. Remember, he had been going through this process of keeping the safety net in case Jalen Hurts didn't develop, and adding this extra draft capital just in case he needed a quarterback. He doesn't need a quarterback now. Does he all of a sudden seize the moment?
Yeah.
It might be Tyree Wilson, might be Jalen Carter, Will Anderson probably out of reach, but trade up?
Yeah, well, starting to hear about Anderson that a lot of people think he doesn't fit their scheme, which I think is crazy. He's just a phenomenal football player, so find a way for him to fit your scheme. Yeah. And as for Tyree Wilson, by the way, hadn't worked out. I mean, and not that I had this conversation with a personnel guy yesterday. I said, I know you don't care about the workout. He says, yeah, no, we don't, like, the workout itself doesn't matter. But the fact that the kid can't work out, when is he going to be ready? So now that could be a huge factor for him as he potentially starts to slide down a little bit.
By the way, remember, you heard it here first. I'll go on the record with this. If Jalen Carter gets to number 9, the Bears are going to take him. Okay. You can say they have other needs. No. Matt Eberflus, defensive coach. Oh, if he's there, he's going to take a difference maker, and it's going to tick Eagle fans off that he gets all the way down to 9 and then gets snacked up the pick before the Eagles have the chance to get him.
Could very well be. Would make a lot of sense. I'm with you. I was just painting a scenario where potentially he gets
got down to the Eagles. Yeah, I think the Bears at a minimum take them at 9. All right, so give us your overall grade of this draft. We will certainly talk about from number 1 down all the way through, and less important, everything else. But then you bring them all together and you just grade the draft. We know the picks the Eagles have now. They got more picks next year, which could play into this year's draft. But everybody wants to know how much better are we going to come out after the draft is over. That's what we're going to have as a conversation on Saturday night.
Yeah.
How good, bad, or indifferent is this whole draft group of players in 2022?
Yeah. Now, obviously, this is not me studying the tape. This is me talking to the people who do.
Right.
But the consensus seems to be it's just okay, right? Like, it's not the worst you've seen, and it's certainly not the best that you've seen. It also depends at the position that you're talking about. Daniel Jeremiah has long said this is the best crop of tight ends he's seen in a long time. So if you have a need there, you're feeling good about it. So I would say this, toward the back end of the first round, 2 guys said it to me, one GM and one personnel guy, in different words, but the sentiment was the same. These mock drafts that you've got, right? Like the first 20 picks, okay, these are okay, not in the right order, obviously, but like, that's that guy was projected about there, maybe a little bit of a side. Once you get into the 20s, they're saying that you're going to hear guys that were projected as like 3rd-round picks being taken there. And you get 1 or 2 of those every year, but it sounds like there could be a good handful of those guys in that the mock draft exercise on the back end of the 1st round, because it's so flat once you get there from their perspective. It's this plateau through the 2nd and potentially 3rd round. So you may see some guys that other teams have valued a lot higher than these mock drafts are projecting.
Mike, I know you got to run, but I want to get this one in. I kind of tried to get Howie to talk about, but he wouldn't, obviously, at the pre-draft press conference. A lot of change in the Eagles scouting department from, this year to last, and even dating back to before. Gave out the assistant GM tags for the first time, gave it out to an analytics guy, Alec Halaby, a football compliance guy, John Ferrari. Who's number 2 on the scouting staff? Who's Andy Weidel? Who's Joe Douglas? Why does Howie, because he gets it, he hears he's not a football guy. Yeah. And, if that's an Andy pick, if that's a Joe pick, does that still bother him?
Does that still bother him?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it listen, Howie, he doesn't have an ego, right? Now, everybody likes hearing good things, right?
Yeah.
And I know he likes hearing good things. And when he was getting beat up a couple of years ago, that bothered him for sure. But I don't think he sits there and overrules guys like sometimes you'll hear about and see in this league, all the way up to ownership, by the way. I mean, sometimes you hear it from ownership, and I know that was something that was being kicked around with Jeffrey Lurie. And Jeffrey has had influence over the year on some picks.
3 picks. They all worked out. Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata. I forget the 3rd one. Remember when Jeffrey said that? Only 3. And they were all great.
They're great.
They were all great.
Yeah. What was the oh my God, I'm blanking on his name already. God, it was just the receiver from Stanford.
JJ
Arcega-Whiteside. Yeah. I heard that Jeffrey liked JJ.
He left that out when he was recapping the picks that he had a lot of influence on.
What was the question again? Who's number 2?
No, Howie's number 2.
He's leaning on a lot of people. They've had a lot of people move elsewhere and a lot of moving parts, and I think they have done a nice job of, with all these people moving, whether it's Andrew Berry or Catherine Raish, who's left as well. I mean, with all these moving parts, they seem to have done a nice job of at least keeping a cohesive staff and the ability to assemble talent. So I don't know how to answer that, to be honest with you.
Fair enough. Then I'll make your last one even easier. Starting Thursday, I'm guessing late lunch, somewhere thereabouts. You got to get a meal in you before the draft actually gets underway. Where is that meal taking place, and where will you be Saturday night when the draft is all over and done with? What does the itinerary look like for Mike Garafolo between midday Thursday and Saturday night?
Well, we're going to be on the air from Mount Laurel at NFL Films at 1:00. It's we don't get to use that studio too often anymore. We used to do Good Morning Football Weekend out of there. So we're excited about that. It's the 2 days of the year we get to do it. Thursday, 1:00, NFL Network. Friday, 1:00, NFL Network. Thursday, we'll be looking forward to round 1, obviously. Friday, we'll be recapping round 1, looking forward to round 2. And also on Thursday night, NFL Plus, which if you haven't subscribed, definitely subscribe to that. We've got an alternate broadcast to the main broadcast. Rhett Lewis will be hosting. Mark Ross, the former Eagles executive and Giants as well, will be with us. Cynthia Freeland, our analytics expert. Yours truly, I will be playing the role of information guy. It's going to be kind of a mock draft room is the way that they're doing it. Mark Ross will be the executive, Cynthia with the analytics. And we're going to kind of, instead of the whole show of the draft, because the way we're playing it, make a pick, we'll talk about it for 30 seconds, and then we'll kick it forward. Kind of the whole night, kind of look forward. Hey, what do we think from this next pick and moving on? And how would you do this if you were in the room and all that stuff? So if you're interested in that, we'll be on NFL Plus. Keep us up and keep the main broadcast up. Watch it all.
Very nice. Like it. That's why we have
alternate
TVs
broadcast.
TVs and tablets. We'll have you up on the tablet, Mikey G. And if you need someone to drop by and drop you off a hoagie or something like that, I'm about 3 miles away from the studio in Mount Laurel. So drop me a text, say, Jody, I need a roast beef and cheese. I'll get it to you, all right?
Attaboy. Love it, Jody. Thank you for that.
Mike, thanks, buddy. No, thank you for jumping on with
Yep.
us. Have a great time Thursday and Friday. We'll be keeping you on the tablet as well. Appreciate you jumping on our tablet with us today.
You got it, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Garafolo, NFL Network. And to be honest with you, I just fell into that last question. I just really was kind of inquisitive as to what he was doing.
Yeah, Mount Laurel. I didn't even know
the promo for what he's going to be doing, and he's a matter of minutes from my house.
You know, I don't. You know, obviously, I'm not paying that much attention to broadcast. I always say so, but I didn't know. It was interesting. I thought Mike would be. You know, I never thought of that before because in studio would mean Los Angeles, and obviously he's a local guy. So yeah, Mount Laurel. I forgot. They're never in Mount Laurel anymore.
Mount Laurel Studio for broadcasting on Thursday and Friday for the NFL Network. But you got to have NFL Plus if you want to catch Garafolo. All right, Johnny Mac coming back. We still got a solid 15 minutes left to go here on Birds 365. So stay with us.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood days.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
You got your Mag guys here on Birds 365, closing out a week. Next week should be fun. It's draft week.
Draft week.
Get a couple of quote-unquote draft experts, mock draft guys before we get to Thursday and the actual start of the draft. So looking forward to next week. Thank Mike Garafolo for hopping on. I got to give you props. You tried, Johnny Mac. You tried to get the number 2 guy out of him.
Yeah.
And I really did believe him. We talked earlier about what you do and don't believe at certain times of year and guys giving you non-answers and or flat out lies. I don't think Mike was lying to it. I don't think he was covering up. I don't think he knows.
No,
I don't.
I
I don't think
I don't
Howie.
know.
If
I don't
Howie's
think
got a
anybody
number two in
knows.
his mind, the way that he's working behind the scenes, and there's someone who's his number one confidant, I don't think Mike Garafolo knows.
Yeah, no, I don't know. So
Neither do
buy.
I. But that was a good question by you, because Mike has over the years been able to break a Eagle story or two, so he's got any good Eagle source somewhere. Don't know if it's Howie Roseman or someone else, but don't know that knows, and I'll be very interested to see if you and or any other media guys can ferret it out after the fact. Maybe, just maybe, down after the draft is over and done with, you can get something off the record as to how the actual machinations of the draft worked. Yeah, probably not. But you're very good at what you do. So if anybody can do it, I got faith in you, Johnny Mac. But it's leading into the draft. I think it's one of the more fascinating questions right there with who the Eagles are actually going to select, how they're going to go about getting ready for the selections that they're going to make.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll know at some point. It might be 12 months down the line. It might be 2 years down the line. We'll know at some point how it all shook out. But yeah, it'll probably take a little bit before you can sort of uncover the rocks for these types of things. But look, there's been so much turnover, which is a good thing from the perspective, and how he talks about this all the time. Like, other people want your people. That shows that they have respect for the organization. Mike mentioned some of the names. I mean, we're going back to, people forget Andrew Berry and Cat Raish and never mind Ian Cunningham and Brandon Brown and Joe Douglas. And
all the way back to Joe Douglas. Yeah, that's where it all starts.
Andy Weidel, on and on and on and on, and all these guys, and even lesser scouts have left. It's sort of an underreported story, because there's a bunch of new people in charge, and giving out those assistant GM titles, and just there's a lot of promotions, just guys who and girls who have been in the organization but now have higher roles. So yeah, it's scouting is, because it's not as public facing as coaching and players, and it's a really, really important part of the organization, and there's been a lot of change there, a lot of change.
Speaking of Joe Douglas, Aaron Rodgers is still not a Jet, and we've been talking about this for now months, since the Aaron came out of the darkness and said, "Yeah, I'd like to be a Jet."
The darkness.
And there's been speculation as to what it would take to get a deal done. And the Jets have made moves that seem to make you believe that they're going to get Aaron Rodgers, but they don't have Aaron Rodgers yet. You and I talk about this all the time on the show, that deadlines kind of push actions, that when you get up against the deadline, things seem to start to happen. Is the draft a deadline? And if so, is it a deadline for either the Jets or the Packers? I guess it's certainly one for both. But who is it more of a deadline for? If I were the Packers, I'd want players this year. I wouldn't want to wait 12 months for whatever compensation I'm going to get for Aaron Rodgers. I would say the Jets have the advantage going into this week. Will they take a bet? Will the Packers just settle for what they need, or will they go hardline and go, no, you're not giving us enough. We'll make you wait for Aaron Rodgers' services?
I think it kind of depends on whether the Packers think he's going to show up. Now, typically he wouldn't show up, right? And so
he shows up late whenever the day,
exactly.
damn well feels like.
Exactly. So I think they're operating under the fact that they have till training camp, and that would be the true deadline, because they don't want him showing up to training camp and paying him $60 million. So that to me is the drop dead date, obviously. But yeah, you bring up a good point. You generally want something now rather than later. Although, the Packers are a good organization as well. maybe they look at next year's draft and say, you know what, that's a better draft. It's not that important to us. The immediacy, the urgency. But
let me push back on you a second. Didn't make the playoffs last year. Not going to have Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, I'd like to get better like now, not say.
Well, what I'm saying is the Packers are very sort of like the Eagles. They're very disciplined. They know they're taking a step back. I mean, they're not going to panic. They're not a bad organization. They're not going to do things out of character from how they built that. That's one of the most stable organizations in the NFL. And they deserve a lot of credit. I give them a lot of, crap every once in a while because they've been lucky at the quarterback position, but they're really a good organization. They're in the conversation. I would say the Eagles they're top 5 along with the Eagles, and the Patriots have been for years, obviously, and Baltimore, but things have gone a little bit south for them. They have a good reputation. But overall, the bottom line to me is they don't want them showing up. So if Aaron wanted to fix this quickly, he would just show up, and they want no part of that. But they're probably pretty confident that he doesn't want to show up to Green Bay in the spring. That's my guess. And they have a little bit of room from that standpoint. But that's just a pure guess. They don't want him showing up, though.
All right, you mentioned the best organizations in the league. You think the Eagles are one. You think the Packers are one. You think the Patriots are one. How much do you think that played into yesterday's stop-start announcement that Matt Patricia was going to be joining the Eagles staff? I don't think he was hired off his tenure as the head coach of the Lions, although Sirianni did say that a former head coach is not a bad thing to have on the staff. How much of it do you think is that, the Patriots have been one of the best organizations. He's been part of that. If he can bring that and add that to our organization, it's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out the connection, and that's, I haven't figured it out yet. I'm sure somebody has. Typically you meet a coach somewhere along the line, you develop a relationship, and they're both New York guys. I don't know how close Matt's from Sherrill, New York. Maybe you're a New York guy.
Sherrill. I dated a Sherrill once, but that's the only Sherrill I know. There's a Sherrill, New York.
He went to RPI. I think people know that.
RPI right across the river from where I went to school, Albany.
Yeah.
I know RPI guys. No, I would guess I'm older than Patricia. I was going to say maybe we're the connection, and he and I got drunk at the Long Branch Tavern in Albany.
He's 48. Let's see. I'm looking.
Obviously, a little older than the coach.
He spent a ton of time in New England, and then it was Detroit, and then back to New England. College, it was just, RPI, Amherst, Syracuse. So, Nick's from Jamestown, New York. So I don't know where the connection is, but somewhere there has to be a connection.
Exit 9 on the New York State Thruway. That
maybe.
No idea where they cross paths, but that was fun for you yesterday on being able to catch it on the website. How long do you think it was up there that Matt Patricia's bio was on the Eagles website?
Not more than 2 minutes, and I felt bad afterwards because, I hope I didn't get a web person. They probably published the wrong web page, and we just happened to get there at the right time. And you got to do your job, though.
Sure.
I hope so. If Bob, if you're listening, don't
be firing anybody.
No, I mean, come on. We happened to be on it. We saw it. We did our job. That's it.
There's a reason we call McMullen the Grim Reaper, because he gets people fired all the time. And the Grim Reaper might have hit again yesterday. Anyway, we'll put it on McManus. It's Timmy Mack, the guy who you were sitting there with at the time, who got the screenshot of it to show the proof that Matt Patricia was going to be an Eagles coach. We'll make Timmy Mack be the bad guy. in this scenario. All right, McMullen, what are you doing this weekend? I know you'll be writing 22 articles for 42 different outlets.
All draft stuff. All draft all the time. Plus, got to write about Howie and Nick as well from yesterday, even though,
when is your only mock? Your mock point one?
Wednesday.
Okay.
I'll put it out.
Put it out just before. That's all you got to do is day of. And of course, he will be here Wednesday on Birds 365, as will I. You want to come in on Monday too? You want to do Monday and Tuesday leading up to Wednesday?
I'm planning on it,
Okay, all right. If you're going to be here, I'm going to be here. I'm not bagging you, and I appreciate the fact that you're not bagging me. But we're going to bag for this week. Next week should be fun. We'll have a whole bunch of draft guys. Rick Saratel will be on. Maybe we'll try our guy Ian Cummings as well. So plenty of draft lead up. McMullen will be digging his heels in about no Bijan. Oh, by the way, he's probably going to be right. If you're,
I'm liking that Mike's on board with me too. Mike Garafolo's on board.
Yeah, he was pretty strong about it.
Yeah, he was pretty strong.
What I know of the Eagles, he used the word no, and when you go no, you're pretty strong.
He was pretty strong. They make fun of, and by the way, Mike is correct. They make fun of teams that put a lot of assets into the running back position.
Yeah, and I do think it's. I asked him about the overall class. I think there are two very good running backs in this class: Bijan Robinson, Zach Charbonneau. And I'm a Charbonneau fan over Gibbs. I think people are overrating Gibbs. Oh, by the way, Eagle fans, if the Eagles take Gibbs, you're going to get a guy. The Eagle fans aren't happy with me this week. They say I peed on their cornflakes a couple of different times because of that.
They're never happy with
the Hurts contract.
Welcome to
years
the club.
4 and year 5, and the dislike of Quez Watkins. Which, hey, by the way, Quez. Both the coach and the GM.
We should have talked about. We should have talked about. Quez went off on Twitter. Did you see that?
No.
He was like, "I'll make you all eat your words."
Really?
I think there was a
Quez doing smack talk on social media. I didn't catch that.
Yeah. Olamide coming in, lighting the fire under Quez Watkins. Hey, if it works, it works, man. Good for him. Good for him.
Exactly. If Quez, if you make me eat my peanut on cornflakes, I'll be happy for you, buddy. I'll be ready to tip my hat to you. Yeah, Quez had a flat out bad year, and if I'm projecting and predicting, I think he's talking a little smack. More power to him.
Hey, Quez admitted he had a bad year, so.
Well, when you admit it, then you go out and you put it in the rearview mirror and you outdo yourself the next year. We'll see if that's the case. All right, J-Mac, I say we do this again next week. You're in?
I'm in. Let's do it.
Be right back here, Birds 365 Monday, which is in 2 days.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.